Athletes, welcome back. Today we have bench press. So we're gonna bring in the famous TJ Carver as our athlete today, and we are gonna get into the basics to help you bench safely, effectively, and get those big numbers up. So we're gonna start out very first with our bar height, with how high we have this bar set. So if I have TJ stand up, an easy rule that applies to about 80% of your athletes, the majority, is setting up this barbell J-cup height to roughly hip level. Now, this is just something so that if you go to another gym and they have a rogue rig, you can base it off the numbers that are on the rig, or if you're in your gym and you have to bench in a different location. So use a body marker for yourself to figure out where that J-cup needs to go. So for TJ, we're right about hip level, his hip's there, so we know that that works for him. If it doesn't work for you, there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to figure out where you're consistently benching from. And the reason is that we need a height that when we're loaded, and we'll see this in just a moment, is that we only need an extension of the arms to get this barbell out of the rack. If we're having to do half a rep to get it out of the rack, or even worse, unloading our shoulder to get it out of the rack, that's not gonna be optimal and often sets us up for potential injury. So that's our first step. The next thing is that TJ set his bench up, and this sounds very rudimentary, but it's super important. Make sure that your bench is centered up with your bar. If it's slightly off to one side, that can throw your rep off. Next thing is that we're gonna take a look at foot placement. Now, if TJ goes ahead and lays back for us, we're gonna take a look at what his feet do. So when cueing athletes, we have to think about the bench press as a full body movement. It's not just your upper body, your chest, shoulders, and triceps. Your glutes are gonna be engaged in this, your hamstrings and your quads. You get leg drive through your lower body when you're benching, and if you don't believe me, you can try taking your feet off the floor and benching, and it completely changes that movement. So what happens is that for TJ, he's gonna find a foot placement that allows him to keep that lower body engaged. For taller athletes, you'll find that pulling your feet back so that you're driving through your toes allows you to engage your lower body. For shorter athletes, you may want to take some plates and put them underneath your feet. So take a couple high temps so that you can get that leg drive into the ground. The height of the bench dictates where you're gonna place your lower body, and typically with rogue benches, you'll find that taller athletes around 6 foot or higher will need to pull those legs back, engaging, and then shorter athletes will do that plate trick so that they can stay safe with their low body. The next thing that we're gonna take a look at is that when we get ready for the bar, we wanna get our shoulders into a good position. Now, this isn't gonna go hand in hand with our hand placement, so we're gonna talk about shoulder placement first, and then we're gonna talk about our hand placement. So with our shoulders, what I'm gonna have TJ do is he's gonna take his hands, put them out to the side just like this. I want him to retract those shoulder blades in so that they're down and back, and then he can bring his hands up. So this is the position that we want to be in for our bench. Now I'm gonna have TJ go ahead and sit up for me. He's gonna spin around on the bench so that you can see his back. So other direction for me. So in this position, what it looks like what TJ just did is he's gonna put those hands out, and then he's gonna squeeze those back together, so loading down and back. This is gonna provide a stable platform, and when he's doing his bench press rep, he's actually gonna think about driving his back into that bench. If we take a look at what this does for his range of motion, I'm gonna have TJ stand up. He's gonna come to the rig, and what I want him to do is that with his full reach, I want him to extend through his shoulder and touch. Now close your hand and move forward a little bit for me. There. So now go ahead and bring that arm back like you're doing a bench press. All the way back, and then press again. This is what people will often do with their shoulder, which is incorrect. When we get into this extended position and our shoulder's not packed or loaded back, we get into a place where we can potentially injure our shoulder, especially when we're under load. What I'm gonna have TJ do is get back into that fully extended position again. Now I want him to retract his shoulder blade. You notice that we've lost about 2 to 3 inches of range of motion, so go ahead and pull back for me with your arm like you're benching, and then press. And again, so you're gonna feel like when you start practicing this that you're not pressing to full extension or full range of motion. This is full range of motion. We have full extension through the arm, and this is gonna be a super safe position for him to press in. The second thing is that if TJ maintains, let's go ahead and get down on the bench for us one more time. So I want you to lay back, and I want you to extend your arms for me unloaded. Now I want you to go ahead and bring your arms back like you're going down into a bench in the very bottom. If you notice here, his shoulder has rotated forward in the socket, which is something that, again, is another bad position to be in under load. It can create some impingement for us. So we're gonna come back up. Give me one more rep so they can see that rotation in your shoulder. Back down, and it rotates forward. Go ahead and come up. Now load those shoulder blades back for me. down and against the bench. Now come down. Notice how now his shoulder has stayed back against the bench the entire time. So we're nice and supported and loaded. So that's what you want. Give us a couple reps there. So making sure those shoulders are always making contact with the bench. Go ahead and relax for me. One way that you can practice this, because it can be a foreign concept, especially if you've been one of those people that has always engaged or disengaged your shoulder when lifting the bar out of the rack, is that if we get up against a rig or we get up against a wall, I prefer a wall on this, but we think about taking our shoulders, we're gonna load back against that bar now, or against that rig. And now what I do is that as I press, I wanna feel myself maintain that contact. Using a wall gives you a larger surface area, so you really can feel even more so than the bench, yourself keeping contact with that wall. So practice that before you get onto the bench, because it's a good tactile cue that'll have some good carryover. Now, once we're here, I said that we were gonna talk about shoulder placement. Now we're talking about hand placement. For your hand placement, we're gonna look at our width being slightly outside of our chest, and it's gonna give us the same positioning that we would have for a push-up. So when we come down and when TJ comes down, we wanna make an A-frame with our body. So if you look at where my arms are at, I'm about 45 degree angles, or 45 degrees out from my body. If I'm narrow in, so I'm so close where I'm like at a close grip, this is gonna be more tricep and less chest. And then if I go into that super wide, that guillotine press, I'm putting everything on my rotator cuff. Again, opening yourself up for injury or impingement. So we wanna Goldilocks it and find halfway in between. So however long your arms are, that's gonna dictate your hand placement on the bar so that we can maintain that nice 45 degree angle. So when TJ comes to the bar, he's gonna go ahead and put his hands on the bar. And what we're looking for here is that we want to get a diagonal grip on the bar. Now that may sound weird, but I'm gonna show you what that means, is that if TJ maintains a straight grip on the bar, so the bar goes straight across his palm just like this, and then he goes to lift the bar, you can see that the bar is now loaded behind his wrists. Go ahead and relax. And we put a lot of stress on that joint. So if you get wrist pain when you're benching, there's a good chance that your grip needs to be adjusted. Now, if we change that grip so that we're angled on the bar now, so going from that flat grip into that angled, it's gonna give that bar loading, so it's gonna be directly over your forearm. So if he's angled his grip now, he goes ahead and presses up into the bar. You see that we have a nice strong position stacked over our forearm, and that's gonna give us maximal drive into the bar without losing any power or creating unnecessary strain on our wrist. Go ahead and rack it for me. So now that we've learned the basics of positioning that we need to be in, the next thing that I'm gonna tell you, and this is super important if you're one of those athletes that bumps your bar into the rack, is that with a Rogue rig, you can do this, but I must stress, you need to make sure that you don't go crazy with this. But we're gonna think about rolling the bar forward when we go to start our rep to get set, so that the bar is gonna be lined up over our mouth. If the bar is lined up over your eyes and it's rolled forward into this position, you're gonna be too close to the rig, and that's where you're gonna bump into it. This position is gonna allow TJ to press the bar up and then have enough distance from the J-cup so that he can go down into his rep. So with good positioning of our hands, we've got our shoulders loaded back against the bench. We've got our feet driving into the floor, butt is in contact with the bench as well. He's gonna come down slightly below a sternum level. He's gonna press and then back down and up. And he's gonna breathe every time he does a rep for us. Back down and breathe out. Good, again. And one more. Good, and rack the bar. Fantastic. So as TJ was pressing, and this is gonna be the same thing for you, that bar follows a slight J pattern or a little bit of an angle. So we start over our shoulders at the top position. As the bar comes down, it's gonna move forward slightly so that we're hitting right below that sternum level so that we can hit that A-frame position with our body, and then we will drive back out of it. If you are an athlete that has an issue with overextending and you squeeze your glutes so hard that you arch up off the bench, we have to avoid that because you're placing all of that stress on your lower back, and we do not want to do that. On the other side, you do not have to keep a flat back on the bench. When we're setting up and when you're standing, you have a natural curve in your spine. So as long as we keep our shoulders planted on the bench and our butt planted on the bench, you'll find that that normal arch that forms is completely okay. If you are an athlete that likes to pull yourself into position and create a little bit more of an arch, that is completely safe to do as well, as long as hips stay in contact with the bench. As soon as they lift off, that's where we get into a danger area, and we want to make sure that we keep ourselves as safe as possible while lifting. So that covers our basics on bench press. We hope that you guys have a lot of fun with this. We are gonna transition into our dumbbell bench now. So we're gonna leave the bar on the rig right now. We're just gonna take our bench and we're gonna slide it out. And TJ already has his dumbbells set, and we told him to go light, but this man has gone heavy just because it's easy for him. So with our dumbbell bench, this is gonna be a little bit different positioning than what we have on our barbell bench. You'll see a lot of carryover, but since these now move independently from each other, you're gonna see that these come down in a little bit of a different position than what the bar does, because the bar, we can create tension off that bar. With the dumbbells, we have to maintain a safe position since they're free floating. So what TJ is gonna do is that we're gonna talk about our bench positioning here. So we're gonna use the same foot positioning. So we wanna make sure that feet are nice and engaged into the floor. When he comes back, go ahead and lay back. We're gonna think about those shoulders being nice and loaded back. And we have the same thing here, is that as he comes down with those dumbbells, we're gonna keep those shoulders loaded against the bench and then come up. And so let's go ahead and sit up and grab those dumbbells. So to load our dumbbells into place, what we're gonna be looking at doing is that we're gonna hop one at a time into position so that we can lay back with these. So TJ is gonna place these on his legs, and then you're gonna see him hop one up, he'll hop the other up, and now we're in position. Maintaining him in this bottom position here, you can see that he has that dumbbell angled in the same position as his upper arm, which is super important. Let's go ahead and press. In this position, we're looking at those dumbbells being more where they're gonna be straight across, and as they come down, they're gonna rotate down into position and press. Good, and again, and press, and one more, and press, good, and go ahead and bring the dumbbells down for me. Perfect, and go ahead and relax, set them down on the floor. Now, when we're on our dumbbell bench, the biggest thing here is that you'll see athletes use a couple different strategies. Some will keep those dumbbells completely straight like this. Again, we're getting into that guillotine press territory that's gonna go all off your rotator cuff, which is no good. You'll see other athletes where they almost take a neutral grip and they bring them close into their sides. This is disengaging a lot of engagement that you can get from your chest and relying solely on tricep strength, which will cause you to burn out pretty quick. So we think about when we start at this position here, we'll have those dumbbells straight across or slightly angled. As they come down, they'll angle enough to mimic the same positioning as our upper arm, and then we press through again. You notice that when TJ came down, the last thing we want to do is drop those dumbbells to the side. So as he brought them down, he lowered them to his hips, and then he used the momentum of the dumbbells going down to help himself sit up. Go ahead and show us one more. So pick the dumbbells up, show us one rep, and then I want you to bring those down and show how you dismount with those dumbbells. So we hop them up, we press, go one more rep. And now go ahead and come down with those. So he brings his hips up, he meets the dumbbells with his legs, and then he sits up, and then he lowers the dumbbells to the floor, making gym owners everywhere extremely happy because he didn't drop those, and also making his rotator cuffs happy because he didn't crank them back into a weird position. So that covers all of our pressing, from our bench press to our dumbbell bench press. Thank you for joining us. Get after that pressing. We can't wait to see those PRs. And as always, be good, be kind, and join us again for another great day of fitness.